Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this morning on our seasonally adjusted moving average, a projected trend that we have recently added to the charts. My name is Danielle Roberts. I am a product manager with SONAR, and I am joined here by Jared Porter, who is the Director of Customer Success. And we are going to be talking through this new functionality as well as the ability to display lane level rates on the charts as well. We will have a Q&A, so roughly the last 10 minutes or so of the webinar, we will open it up for Q&A. However, if you have any questions as we go through the webinar today, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen, or there's also a chat box to the, I believe it's the right side. And with that, I will pass it over to Jared and we'll kick this off.
Yeah, hey guys. Jared Porter, Director of Customer Success. Excited to be walking through this. I know this is something that we've been talking about internally for quite a while. I know as we get into showing this, something that a lot of our customers have, been asking us for and others is a forecast. And while this is not a forecast exactly, what we're doing is we're taking and we're looking at seasonality on different data sets and kind of extrapolating that out into the future. So giving you the ability to look at where are things at right now and seasonally, how should that change as we move into the next 6 months? So as you can see right here, Danielle's got our favorite data set up, our OTRI.USA, which is the outbound tender rejection index, measuring the percentage of tenders that are going out that are being rejected. And as we can see on this, we're currently at about 6.82 on a national average, which is, fairly good news for you, depending on where you're at in the supply chain, whether you're a shipper or a carrier. Things have been elevating over the last couple of years. But one of the things that is tough, especially when you're looking at a chart in this format, is, okay, I can see where it is right now, but what should I expect as we move forward? And I think the first way to show this is kind of how we would best show it previously. So Danielle, if you could go up and add seasonality to this. So previously, and with tender rejections, it was a little bit easier to read. And so right now we can see we're at about 6.8%, just below where we were for the 4th of July holiday, where it kind of spikes up leading into the holiday and drops back down a little bit, but still kind of a high point for the year thus far, besides that of January, which is kind of fallen off those peak season peaks. However, when it came to like extrapolating out over the year, you can see that things do tend to trend down after this for the next couple of months. However, you just don't really know how much. So which one of these lines do we follow? Do we kind of merge these lines together to figure out where things are going to go? What this new seasonally adjusted moving average does is it takes the last 2 years of seasonality and it averages them out and it applies it to the current point in time. So it allows us to extrapolate out into the future. And so if you're trying to understand what we can expect for rejection rates throughout the remainder of this year, for now, but at any point in time, it's for the next 6 months, it would allow you to look and see, okay, are they going to be going up? Are they going to be going down? Are they going to be flat? Now we're looking at a national average, but it changes market to market. Anything to add to that, Danielle?
So we are looking at the national average right now. And as Jared mentioned, this is a 2-year moving average. So we're really comparing, and let me go ahead and remove this 2022 off of here. So we are really comparing the last 2 years averages in a month over month, comparing, similar date to today's date, looking at that historical, but then we're also taking into that year-to-date trend. So where have we been so far this year in order to place that projected trend for the next 6 months? So it's really that year-to-date adjustment factor that's kind of the most important piece here, to be able to adjust to those current trends when you're projecting that out.
Yeah, and the cool thing to this is, we're just showing you the rejection index right now. The cool thing with it is that we can apply it to any data set that we would like. So, Danielle, I'll let you pull up one of your choosing here. All right, so now we're looking at the outbound tender volume index. And if you could, Danielle, go ahead and just throw this one on a seasonal as well.
Oops.
All right, and so what we're looking at here is kind of the same thing, where the last one we've seen that rejections have actually been elevated versus the last couple of years. On this one, we're seeing kind of the opposite, where volumes have been trending down in the truckload space over the last couple of years, but we're able to see kind of how seasonality impacts this. And so, we should expect, so long as everything stays the same, and I do want to caveat, this is not the reason that you can't necessarily call this, just directly a forecast or anything like that. We can't really account for any black swan events, sudden market tightness, weather situations that may impact freight. This isn't forecasting out and looking at those types of things. It is just taking the last couple of years, looking at what the seasonality profile has been, and applying that to the current point in time. So we can understand where we're at now, and based on seasonality, where we're going to be going in the future.
Yep. And I think that's a very important point in that, the reason that we're saying this is a projected trend is it's going to give you an idea of what the next 6 months could look like. But you could have something as, extreme weather. If hurricane season ends up being really, really bad, then obviously, it is going to change what we're showing and what the actual data will report when we get to that time period. So this just allows you to better plan, better prepare for what may be coming up over the next few months.
Yeah, and when there is a situation like that arises, the good news about this is that we're not just averaging out the last couple of years and applying that to the chart. We're also taking that and applying it to a baseline, which the baseline is the current value. So if we do see a situation where we see a sudden, we'll take volume into perspective. If we see a sudden surge in volume, this seasonally adjusted moving average will adjust itself to the current baseline. It'll look at where things are at now and then extrapolate it out from there. So while it's not taking those things into account necessarily right now, if the current value does change, if things do increase or things do decrease, the seasonally adjusted moving average will move along with that. And then Danielle, I think where I think this is one of the best use cases are to kind of show them another new thing that we've released, which is the lane search function inside of the charts, whether it be in the chart function or inside of my dashboards.
Yep, exactly. So any chart in Sonar, whether it's this quick chart feature or any of your custom pages, when you click that inner symbol, you should now see a lane search. So this is where you can look at van, reefer, or flatbed. You can choose to view spot or contract if you have access to both. And then you would just type in your location. So let's just do Chicago to Atlanta, because that's just two that I have canned in there. And then we will add that to the chart. So you'll see spot is going to be in green, contract is going to be in purple. And you can also, if you hover over either the spot or contract over on the left side of your chart, is where you will see that seasonally adjusted moving average, where you can click and it will display that out for the next 6 months. So you can see the trend. So go ahead, Jared.
I was just going to say, and this, where I see this being so valuable is anyone who's been in, the pricing space of looking at, an RFP, whether it's from the shipper side, carrier side, or broker side. Being able to understand the seasonality profile allows you to understand where you need to be able to set your rates. If you're a carrier, or if you're a shipper right now, and you were setting your rates for the next couple of months based on the current point in time, and especially in the contract space, I would be looking at this and looking at the seasonality and understanding that spot market is going to start to tighten up and likely get pretty close to that contract space. If those two things converge too closely, then we're looking at a situation where we might start to run into some service level risk. If I'm a
Yep.
broker and I'm wanting to try to undercut the market and I want to take current rates and add some slight margin to that, well, I can see here that based on seasonality, I'm going to run some risk of losing some margin over the course of the next few months. Um, so this is where I see this as being the most applicable immediately.
Yep. Yep. And you can use this whether you're preparing for a surge, if you are evaluating new lanes, or if you're just simply trying to get ahead of the curve. You're wanting to, prepare yourself for what may be next, even from a short term, next 30, 60 days, 90 days. These projections will just help ground your expectations. And that's kind of the value of using the historical seasonal trends as well as the real time data. So up to, daily updated up to today, and just help you prepare for what may be ahead.
Yeah, and thinking about all the best ways of using Sonar as it is, obviously we're used oftentimes in the pricing space of adding that elevated level of context to your operations, but then being able to communicate this with, if you're a brokerage in particular, being able to communicate something like this to a shipper. If you're going into, say a 6-month bid cycle right now, being able to communicate like, hey, this is our rate, and it's because we're seeing things tightening up over the rest of the year. We don't want to lowball. We don't want to find ourselves in a bad position, and eventually get to where we either have to adjust pricing, reject freight, or just kind of lose on our end. This is a really good visual of showing and communicating why you're doing things on the sales side. Being able to say, hey, we see that things are looking like they're going to be increasing over the course of the next 6 months. Let me take a look at the freight. We've got carriers in the network, whatever that is. So this can be used obviously on the pricing side, but the communication side of this is super important.
Yep.
Anything to add to that, Danielle?
No, I think that is 100% spot on. Cannot stress this enough that it's, the projected trend. Use it more as a guide of where things are expected to go over the next 6 months. So whether you see them consistently increase, consistently decreasing. And because this is not a true forecast in the sense that it's just simply using the last 2 years averages. It is seasonally adjusted, so it's comparing similar time frames, so like August to August, September to September, and all of that. It's just to keep in mind, don't pick a specific date or point in time and then just roll with that rate if you're looking at a lane level, or expect the rejections to be exactly that. Because as things change and as our data updates daily, this projection is going to be constantly readjusting every single day the data is updated. So it's definitely something, if you run heavy volumes in any particular lane, definitely something that you'll want to keep an eye on. Maybe not necessarily every day, but every couple of days, just to see how that trend's moving based off of what's currently happening in that lane, or rejections down to a market level. Keeping those trends up to date. We'll continue to call them out on, if you guys get the daily watch emails and all of those things. But just to keep in mind, it's looking at that predicted trend over the next 6 months. And just to give you that guide of where things are expected to go based off of the historical data in current year.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, we've shown you a couple of data sets, very heavily trucking focused, but any data sets that you work with inside of Sonar on these charts, you are able to use this on. It is taking the same methodology across all of them, looking at the last couple of years, and then turning around and extrapolating that out for the next 6 months.
Yep. So if we wanted to pull up, say, the US customs data, so I just pulled this up. So this is the imported TEUs that have cleared customs already arrived. And you'll notice that view seasonally adjusted moving average is there as well. Now, I chose this data intentionally because I want to show you guys another chart feature that I'm not sure everyone is aware of that's hugely helpful for data sets that are noisy like this is. And in the bottom left corner, there's a little clock that you can then change if you want to view this daily, weekly, or monthly. So if you were to change this to weekly, it will smooth out that line for you so that it's a little bit easier to read. You can get a better trend of what that looks like. And now your seasonally adjusted moving average is still going to be on that same set. So that's why we're seeing kind of the variation between this and flipping it to weekly. But your historical makes it a lot easier to read than all of that noise. Yep. So, but just kind of showing that you can put it for any rail intermodal data sets. You can use it for the NTI data sets if you wanted to, which is going to be that national truckload index. So this is looking at the national average for spot rates, if you wanted to view it there. So any tickerized data set that you can put on a chart, you're able to view the seasonally adjusted moving average for. So if we wanted to, I actually played with this yesterday, the capacity or the net changes in trucking authorities. Now, obviously this is, subject to a lot of things, but you can get an idea of, at least over the next 6 months, based off of what we've seen this year, as well as the last 2 years in those net changes in trucking authorities. This 6 month going forward is looking at further negative turnover. So that's something else that can come into play as well from a preparing for what capacity may look like over the next 6 months and all that as well. But anything to add to that, Jared?
I don't think so. I mean, shown across a few different data sets, and also, showing that you can add it to, say, if we have multiple data sets on one chart, you can choose which ones to add the 6 month moving average to it. It's not just, one data set or an individual baseline. You can go in and choose the data that you want to kind of extrapolate out. So if you're, trying to compare, say, this versus the OTVI or rejections versus spot rate averages, you can kind of extrapolate out on both for the next 6 months.
Yep.
Awesome. I think
so. We did get a question in here that I would just like to hit on. So we have someone asking if it would be possible to add data points from the projections into the Market Dashboard Plus tool. For example, columns showing 30, 60, 90, or even 180-day seasonally projected rates. And I can tell you that right now, that is not specifically on our roadmap, but definitely something that we can look into adding in the future. And obviously, if it's something that we do end up adding, we can keep you updated on those movements. But right now was not in the plans, but I will definitely take that feedback back, see what we can do there. So at this point, if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to either pop it into the chat or the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you all have. But I think we've pretty much covered everything for today. Jared, do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I'm pretty excited about this one, being able to, like we said, it's not directly a forecast. We're not calling a specific rate or a specific change exactly, but we are taking and pulling forward that insight that we've got to be able to help extrapolate and help better prepare for market shifts that happen every year, and give you a little bit more of ability to communicate and read the seasonality.
Mhm.
So if you guys have any further questions or need to do some training on this or want to work with some of our team on how to deploy this, feel free to reach out to the customer success team. That email is cs@gosonar.com. We'd be happy to set up a call and work through it with you.
Yep, awesome. And I'm going to add, if anyone wants to read more about exactly how this moving average was calculated, we have it broken down completely in our Knowledge Center. So I will go ahead and post a link to that in the chat here for anyone that wants to click in and read more about it. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Knowledge Center, this is an absolutely excellent resource. If there is any questions that you have about any of the Sonar data, functionalities of widgets, there's video tutorials, our release notes get posted there. So all of those things, previous webinars will also be posted there. We did have someone ask if it's going to be recorded. Yes, it is recorded, and you will receive an email of the recording tomorrow. It usually ends up hitting like exactly 24 hours after the webinar aired, so expect it around that time frame tomorrow.
And then there's another question saying, curious why 2 year was the time frame chosen? Any insights? Danielle, you can answer this, but I think a lot of it has to do with if you just look back for the last few years, 2022 in particular was a very unique year. And when you take 2022, where almost every data set that you look at, in fact, Danielle, would you be able to pull that up for me real quick? Do otri.usa. And then add in the third year. So you can see 2022, that kind of brighter green line is everything's kind of down and to the right. That was a year that we came off the peaks and the market really cooled off very fast. If you kind of take that and apply that in, that's a year that is abnormal seasonality. If you take that and apply that in, the moving average is going to be down weighted and show a lot kind of down and to the right again, even though that's not necessarily where we expect the market to go. Same thing if you added in even more than that. You've got a very elevated 2021, then you have a 2020 that is up and to the right.
Yeah. So basically, the last 2 years are more likely to reflect the current economic climate, demand patterns, disruptions, things like that, where, as Jared mentioned, when you get into like the 3 to 4 year trends, it's still dealing with that post-pandemic shifts. So it was showing outdated dynamics in the projections, and we feel that those really no longer apply to current year's trends. So no matter what, it's based off of yearly averages. It's not going to be perfect. No forecast or projection can be. But the overall trend, we feel, by using the last 2 years and adjusting for that year to date, should be pretty accurate to what we expect over the next 6 months. So hopefully that answers your question. Alrighty, I don't see any other questions that have come through here. So if anyone else has anything, we'll give it another minute or so to post in here. But, definitely get in, play around with this, put it on your, high volume lanes that you run all the time. Check it out in your market level data sets, whether you're looking at rejections, your head haul, weighted rejection index, or any of the other tickerized data sets that we have, IOTI, or inbound ocean TEU index. Let us know, bring any feedback back about this. Obviously, it is a new feature. Same with being able to display the lane level rates on a chart, which we did not mention, but you can do multiple lanes at the same time. I personally would not do more than 4 lanes max, or it starts to get really busy. But you can compare multiple lanes to each other. You can look at your head haul and your back haul at the same time if you want. So a lot of customizations to this, and it really just allowed for our charts to be all that more valuable for you when you're analyzing the data.
Awesome. Well, I think if we've got no more questions.
Yep. I think we will call it a day. So thank you all for joining. A recording of the webinar will be shared out. Feel free to share it with colleagues. Again, it will be also posted to our Knowledge Center and posted to our SONAR YouTube channel as well. So feel free to listen back to it in any of those places. And if you think of any questions later, like Jared mentioned, please feel free to reach out to our customer success team at cs@gosonar.com. We hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday and a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining.